Turner walk in.
Joe Turner?
Hey there, assessor.
I saw him eating dinner at the Tucker Box.
I saw just one, so.
He's coming this way.
He was finishing up.
You did, yeah.
We just talked about it.
Bring leftovers for us? We heard you went to Tucker Box.
No, I don't know that there was one pool.
Oh,
The
geez.
town is too small. We know where you've been.
Somebody ratted you out already.
CATV, we good to go on volume? Okay. All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Select Board for Wednesday, July 6th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Welcome back, everyone. Hasn't been all that long since we were here last. I hope you are all doing well. Hope you all had a nice holiday weekend. Of course, thanks to everyone who worked for the town over the holiday as well. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Does anybody want to for the town?
I do so, sir.
Holiday as well. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the
Does
flag,
anybody want
United States
for the
of
town?
I do so, sir. To the
Holiday
republic,
as well.
which is stands.
So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the
Does
flag,
anybody want
United
for
States
the
of
town?
I do so, sir. Justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Order of agenda. Any changes to this?
Sir, I do have something. I noticed that there was not a citizen's comment on tonight, and under Title I, Chapter 5 of 1 VSA 312, subsection A, Section A, subsection 8, open meeting, the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to express his opinion on matters considered by the public body during the meeting. And this is not, there's no special circumstances for special meetings or emergency meetings.
Does it say shall or should be afforded?
Shall be given a reasonable opportunity. And I don't know if there's anybody that was.
Is there anyone in the room who would like to comment?
I don't know if there's anybody on.
We will get to that.
There's no-
Is there anyone in the room who wants to comment publicly? Like, is there anyone on Zoom? Kim or Tracy?
There are no hands up.
Okay. Well, if anyone pops on and puts their hands up, we can probably go back and ask them.
I'm sure it was an oversight.
Historically, when we've done a special meeting, we haven't included public comment, but we can always accept public comment.
Yeah, it's just a law. So like I say, just an oversight. It's no big deal.
Okay, well, we'll get to the select board portion of this meeting. So the first item is to set the fiscal year 2022 municipal tax rate. So I assume we will hear from Tracy and maybe Joe and Gail as well.
Yeah, hold on just a second. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for all of you. You have this presentation select board at your desks. Just to set a little bit of a tone with this one. We get this information pretty late in the game and we get it from the state. So that's why we held a special meeting. That's why we are flexible on the day. And that is why, you didn't get this information until this afternoon. We don't get a lot of this information from the state until after the holiday weekend. So here we are, we're setting the fiscal 22-23 tax rate. And I'm going to start off the show with stuff that we can deal with. Just to provide context, we have our approved budget and our approved tax rate for fiscal year 22. And so what we're discussing is the operating expenses to be raised by taxes and the tax rate per $100 of property value. I know Joe's talked to you all about how he calculates that and why we calculate it out to 100. So we don't probably need to dwell on that. You'll see that the tax rate over the last 4 years as approved has fluctuated a little bit between 1 and 2 cents. Here are our final fiscal year 23 calculations. This is our final grand list amount and the final municipal tax rate. As you remember, we go through the budget process with an estimated tax rate that is asterisk. And that's because we don't finalize the grand list until the end of June. So individuals, property owners can grieve their tax, can go to the assessor and have a grievance on their tax rate, and we do make adjustments based on that. Joe, let me know when you want me to turn it over to you to nerd out.
Oh, either way.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
You want to come on up?
Oh, sure.
All right.
We did have some substantial grievances this year that brought us down a little bit from projected, which is not uncommon at all. We also picked up a charitable exemption, which wasn't, we actually picked up two, but one of them was just a rotating building. And one building was charitable, and then a new owner picked it up as charitable. But we picked up a brand new one this year too, so that's good. So yeah, it was a little shy of what we originally projected, but just due to some of those appeals, basically. Nothing unusual, nothing crazy. It was all pretty straightforward.
And below on the slide, you'll see what we get from the state. We don't have any power over that. You don't, I don't, Joe doesn't. Those come straight from the state.
Those state figures are actually a little bit lower than they were last year. Just they dropped them down. I don't know, 0.012%. So it was a decrease. The state did drop those tax rates a little bit.
So the next slide is that really dense slide, which has the recommended motion that we do need. I thought we could pause here if any of you had any questions and wanted clarity before we tried to drag through this required motion.
Lenny? Yeah, can you tell me the amount of unencumbered funds that we have, we brought into this budget?
What, unrecovered?
Unencumbered.
Unencumbered.
Yes.
I wouldn't know that.
So we don't have the wrap up from what was not spent last year.
Are you asking?
I'm asking what we have for unencumbered funds that from the budget from last year.
Are you asking what we had in fiscal year 22 for?
Yeah, yes, for,
Fiscal year 22 is not closed yet.
I thought it closed at the end of last month.
It closes on the calendar.
Okay.
However, the process to close it, we're still accepting invoicing and billing for revenue right now because
Okay.
of the timeline of the way that bills come in. Not everybody turns their bill in advance of
Gotcha.
6:30, and we also do not prepay.
So will that affect this number in any way, the unencumbered funds that we have left over from FY22?
Go ahead, Gail.
So the budget that we have in place was approved by the voters in March. The amount of money that's being contributed from the unassigned fund is $1 million. Those funds have already been accounted for,
Right.
regardless of how we end in the fiscal year that just closed, will not change this at all.
Okay, so the unencumbered funds will just roll over, if we do have any, they'll just roll over into the budget, correct? If when you close out the last year.
So what
Right.
happens with they're actually unassigned funds. is what
Unassigned
they're
funds,
called.
sorry, unassigned funds.
Right, I just don't want to get
Sorry.
confused because we're going to be talking about encumbered funds in the next
Yep.
probably 3 weeks. I just want to make sure we get the
Okay,
language.
my apologies.
No, that's fine. So what happens with the unassigned fund is whatever funds that are available will be put into the unassigned fund. At the time when you're doing the budgeting process, you will make that decision whether or not you would like to utilize those funds going forward into the 2024 budget, which is what we will be working on in the
Okay.
fall. In the event that there is a major disaster in the town that cannot be covered by the operating budget that we're presenting right now, well, excuse me, that's been approved and we're talking about, at that point in time, the select board may have to make a decision if we needed to utilize the unassigned fund for a disaster situation.
And then the other question I had is over the last 4 years, 19, 20, 21, 22, how much was taken from unassigned funds? We took $1 million for this budget. How much was taken over the last few years? Do you know?
I know that fiscal year 22, we took don't quote me on this. I'm just going to give you.
Yeah, just rough figures.
600,000. In the year before that, I believe it was 600,000. In the year before that, it was 742. It's been between 600,000 and 700,000 for the last couple of years.
Okay, so we're not,
I apologize, I wasn't
Sorry.
prepared to.
no, that's
have
fine.
those exact numbers.
Okay, thank you. That answers my questions.
Thank you, Gil. Kim? or-
I think this is a question for Joe, so I did like. Anyway, all looks good. I'm just curious as to how, like, when in the language of the motion where it says the amounts for like appropriation and grand list, and then it has the rate and the, you know, they'll include the grand list. Could you just give like a basic summary of how the grand list applies to these?
Sure. Yeah, no problem at all. I like to say the grand list is the last and deepest well the town has. So when we go to fund some of these, you basically, the town basically comes up with a need, right? We have a need for specific things. And then it's a simple calculation to figure out what the rates to set is, but you figure out the need. In this case, highway, excuse me, the highway fund was 14,115,323, and you essentially divide that by the grand list. So the more value you have in the grand list, typically the lower the rate to apply to the need of the town, if that makes sense, which lowers the rate overall. So it's a direct correlation.
And the 14 million amount is the increase of the grand list?
No, that's the total. That 14 million represents the total grand list amount, the total taxable property inventory we have in Hartford. 14 million is times that by 100. We're sitting on probably 1.4
That's,
billion.
I think where I just wanted to like,
Yeah,
I have the basic premise.
we've got more than 14. Yeah, we
Yeah.
got 1.415 billion in value in Hartford.
Is it the, sorry, and is it the state that also, like, when we get the county tax rate and the local agreement rate, are those coming from?
The local agreement comes from me. The county fluctuates on an annual basis. I think that's just a fee that we pay the county for services, right? And that comes from them. And then we just basically take that out, separate it out, and bounce it off the grand list, because that is an applied rate that we're going to have to use. The local agreement is basically just the difference. What we did, I don't know, this is way before my time. It's all based on the veterans exemptions. The state allows up to $10,000. We as a town allow up to 40,000 reduction. So we're paying the state back on that difference. So we're basically paying the state back what we decided to allow as an overage in what the state allows. So the state does 10, each town is allowed up to $40,000. At some point, the select board decided to do that. And moving forward with that, we have to pay the state back every year, because we reduce everything and the state says, wait, you owe us some money because there's a difference there. And that's what that represents.
And so if that 14 million is the 1% of the actual value of the grand list, if we're multiplying it by 100.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I mean,
Is that right? Okay.
I honestly like, I mean, it's maybe everyone else this is clear, and I think I've got basic gist, but I also just want to make sure that, so for example, the grand list for 22 was 14,041,228, and for this year it's 14,153,23. So basically we've increased the grand list by about 7,000,074.
And change, right?
Okay.
Yeah, 7.5 or so.
Okay, I
Yep.
just want to make sure I am understanding what I'm looking at.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Hmm.
The restricted appropriations on there, it's the same thing. That's some things that have been there. We know about restricted appropriations. So that's in addition to what the town needs. That gets its own tax rate too. That gets bounced off the grand list as well.
And that relatable question, which is, what does this tax rate equate to on a $250,000 property? happen to have that?
Sure, like what, basically, it depends on if you're homestead or non-homestead.
Mhm.
So thanks to the lowering, we went up as a municipality, I think we went up 0.018 cents or whatever,
Mhm.
which isn't out of range at all. Thanks to the state's lowering of the ed rates, a $250,000 homestead.
Joe, I have the numbers. If you don't need them, so you don't have to guess.
Of what?
That's what it is, the difference.
About $300.
Well, last year it was 36.50 was the change, $36.50 was the change. And this year, it went up to 46.75.
That's for the restricted appropriation.
Oh, for restricted.
No.
It's just in general. I thought you were asking
Yep.
in general.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think that's something that we can all relate to on a very layman's term.
Yeah.
That
I've got it right here too.
Oh, okay.
I crunched them. It looks like the homestead tax rate went from 2.6608 to 2.6536. That equates to about $300 on 250 a year annually, a reduction. So everyone will see a reduction in taxes this year. Well, not everybody. If you have made physical changes to your property, and I collected that. But yeah, it's about 300, and non-homestead is a little less, at around 40 or 50 for 250,000.
So that people's property tax bills are gonna be lower?
Yeah, seemingly. Again, unless there was an improvement or there was a value change associated with something similar to that. You could go up, go down. There were some people that raised buildings. There's a couple buildings that
Mhm.
were gone this year, and their taxes are going to be reduced.
But it went from, so the final municipal tax rate number of 1.0283 last year, that's 1.0471 this year,
Correct.
equates to less?
Yeah, because the state
Okay.
reduced
great,
their
great.
fee, or their rates. So we didn't increase our rate more than the state reduced theirs. So there's a negative there, which is good.
So the state reduced like the education property tax.
They
and that.
did, yeah.
So our residents, many of them, or for the most part, will see a lower overall bill.
They should, yeah, they should see a lower overbill. Like I said, it'll probably $250,000 home. If your property value remained the same in your homestead, you'll see $200 to $300 difference, lower tax bill. If you're non-homestead, probably more like 50. So it's a slight reduction.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Can you directly answer Kip's question though on a
Sure.
$250,000 house? What the tax will be though? Can you calculate that?
Yep, the taxes will be, as of this year, $6,340, and last year was $6,652. That's homestead. So there's a ballpark $300.
See, that stuff makes sense to me, but I don't follow, I mean, how it is that we can be going down with our taxes unless it's just on the state side of things.
It
It's on the
is,
state
just the
side.
state.
It's gotta be-
The municipal side of it, we are not. We're going up in the municipal side. The state is going down. The state's not asking for as much money this year. So that's
Okay.
where people are going to see the relief.
Okay, so we haven't helped taxes, the state's helped taxes.
The state
Okay,
is the one.
that's
Yeah,
right.
our municipal rate increased slightly,
Yeah,
and the state rates decreased a little bit more than our municipal rate.
that helps
increase.
to bring things. Thank you for asking the question, Kip.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Why is our rate increasing?
that's a long story that goes back last year. You weren't here for the budgeting.
It's part of the budget process
Yeah.
as we set the tax rate. So when we look at the overall budget, we show what the impact would be on the tax rate, because in the end, the voters approve that bottom line and of what they want to tax themselves to make that. And then so we do that work on what the increase of the tax rate is in conjunction with the budget.
They vote on what they want to tax themselves, or they vote on the budget and then the tax rate just gets back into that?
But Rocky, let me try to explain if I can. So we as a select board have the department heads come before us, okay? And along with Tracy, and they present what they'd like for budgets, okay?
I understand.
And then we have discussion among the board.
Oh.
And then we pick and choose what we accept from their budgets or not.
Right.
And then Tracy and staff put together that budget based on that, all right? And so we set that, and then that goes to voters. So it was based on what staff and what staff brought to us as a select board at the time for budget. So they brought higher budgets to us or increases in budgets from the previous year.
Right, thank you. So I do understand, I think I understand all that. The question is, am I correct in understanding then that the tax rate itself is going up because the budget increased at a faster rate than the grand list did?
Correct, and that's not uncommon, yeah. Of course, the grand list increase is, it really depends on so many different things. Depends on real estate markets, depends on our common level appraisal and some of the other factors that the state might force us to do a revaluation.
Right.
Things of that nature. So it's not uncommon for that to happen at all. I mean, typically in some of the smaller towns around here, they're not going to see, they'll see little to no grand list growth, but still their budgetary needs will increase.
But surely our grand list has grown, right?
Our grand list has grown about $7.5 million.
It's just at a slower rate than the budget increase this past year.
Correct. And that's represented in one of the slides that Tracy had up front. You take it back to, yeah, that's it right there. That shows you the increase, the tax rate increase and the rate change. And those rates are a direct derivative of the grand list.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess two questions. One is a procedural question. I'm confused as why we as a select board are voting on a tax rate when that gets backed into the budget, which is predetermined by voters.
The tax rate that we provide for you is a preliminary tax rate, but the grand list doesn't get finalized until the end of June. So we're saying based on Joe's knowledge, skills, and educated guesses, we're thinking the grand list is going to end up about this much, which means that the voters will need to tax themselves about this much, and this will be about this much on a $250,000 home. And then in the spring, all of the assessment work happens in the assessor's office where, Joe's talking about physical changes or reassessment processes. They close the grand list in that moment. And then this is us finalizing the tax rate. And it's really, really common. It actually should be normal for us to have portions of a cent difference in that out to the fourth. And that's why you're seeing things out to the fourth decimal point.
But this is really just a procedural confirmation then of something that the voters have already approved. Is that correct? Because we as a select board, we're not determining the grand list values of the assessment rates. We're not, the budget's already been approved by the voters. So then the tax rate itself is just a division problem, an algebraic result of those two numbers. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. It's just simple math, really. Once the grand list gets set,
Okay.
Basically what Tracy was saying, is there still variables in the situation when we present it to you guys?
I understand that.
And now there's no variables. Well, I say that.
So we're just confirming it then on behalf of the people of Hartford, or why would we vote to disagree with this at all?
This is you have to vote. It's a requirement, but at this point, this is pretty much set in stone. I have no history for anybody that it said we don't want to set this tax rate. So I wouldn't know what that would look like.
Right. So I guess because of that, my question is, why do we vote at all in favor of it? Like, why do we vote?
It's
at
on
all?
the state
It's just a procedure. Is it just?
This is
Yeah.
procedural.
It's just, no, it's just like a rubber stamp approval.
Can
Is
I
that?
interject or just
Yeah.
respond? Because I think the one thing that may not have been clear is what the voters approve is
Right.
the dollar amount.
Right.
What we're approving is the percentage of tax rate based on the state, of the calculations we've gotten. So like the voters didn't approve a tax rate.
Sure.
That's what we're doing. And that tax rate is calculated in order to pay for the budget dollar amount that the voters approve.
Right. Shouldn't that just be automatic? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It sounds like it's just an automatic process, right?
It's probably statutorily.
We're
Okay.
required to do
Okay,
this
that's
work.
that's fine.
If
Thank
we
you for-
don't do it, we probably can't collect taxes next month.
Right.
I see. Okay, thank you for clarifying. I was just confused, but now I feel like that makes more sense. So then it really should be our goal as a community then in order, if we do want to see the tax rate go down in future years, it is our goal to either have basically for the grand list to grow faster than the budget. Is that's
Or to cut the budget
or
to,
to cut the budget
Yeah.
so that it shrinks.
those are your two variables.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, not rely on the state.
Any questions? Comments? We have a motion It's a very long motion.
Oh,
Um,
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question. So Joe, I remember in your presentation, we talked about CLA and we're
Mm.
currently at 0.86, but the state trigger threshold is 0.85. So when that does get triggered as a difference between the assessed 2017 values that we're operating off of and the average home sale values or median home sale values. So when that does get triggered and there is a reassessment, that would theoretically result in a lower tax rate,
That's
assuming that assessments go up. Is that correct?
absolutely, assuming we're in an appreciating market, which we all know we are.
Right.
That's what a lot of people don't recognize and realize, and I appreciate you bringing that up, is that when we do a reassessment, people just immediately think their taxes are going to go up. They don't necessarily. It's really a factor of the rate, and the rate theoretically would go down.
Right.
Revenue neutral is a term. A lot of times, and there's some jurisdictions that have to advertise a revenue neutral rate. So basically, it's like your taxes, your value goes up this amount, your rate's going to go down this amount to keep the revenue neutral.
Proportionally, so that the dollar
Correct.
amount that they pay is relatively similar to the
Yeah.
previous years.
A lot of people don't understand that. So I do appreciate you bringing that up, that just because we're going to do a revaluation, however many years, doesn't mean your taxes are going to go up. It just means it levels the
Right.
value out.
So am I correct in understanding that if there are a certain segment or type of home, let's just say over a price point or under a price point, that the appreciation in that class of homes changes faster than in other homes at a reassessed value, the actual proportional tax burden will be distributed differently? Assuming, I mean, I want to, let's just say homes above $500,000 appreciated at a faster rate over the period since 2017 till now than homes under 500,000. That means that the tax burden would actually shift to those higher valued homes in that theoretical case. Is that correct?
You're right. It's a little more complicated than that because it's not just necessarily price points. It's also geographical location and things of that
Sure.
nature. But what we do when it comes to revaluation is ad valorem taxation. So it's based on market value, and Vermont's the 100% market value state. So during a reassessment, I'm going to level everything out. So yeah, if your property, so if your property, was 250 and now it appreciated to 500,000, we're gonna put you up to fair market, which is 500, and the tax rate's gonna be based on that.
Right.
So you're right, you are right. But there's a little more than just the values. That's also type of property.
Right. There are other
So-
factors involved.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Danny?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Do you need this all read in? That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay. that's
Yeah.
it. So I make a motion that the select board approve the general highway fund with $14,414,454 for $14,411,454 for appropriation. $14,115,323 for grand list, 1.0210 for rate, and $14,404,745 for revenue. County. For 411, I said 411, 14,411, 745 for revenue. County tax with 109,000 for appropriation, 14,115,323 for grand list, 0.0077 for rate, and 108,688 for revenue. Restricted appropriations with 224,177 for appropriation, 14,115,323 for grand list, 0.0159 for rate, and 224,434 for revenue. The local agreement rate with 34,907 for appropriation, 14,115,323 for grand list, 0.0025 for rate, and 35,288 for revenue. Total town tax of 14,778,538 for appropriation, 1.0471 for rate, and 14,780,155 for revenue. Educational homestead tax rate of 1.6065. Educational non-homestead tax rate of 1.6897. Total tax and educational homestead tax rate 2.6536. Total town and education non-homestead tax rate 2.7368. Total appropriation 2022-2023 fiscal year 14,779,538.
Thank you. Got a second from Kim? Discussion?
Yeah, can I do a friendly amendment? I think on total town tax, you said 14,778. It should be 14,779.
I heard the same.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Accepted. Sorry. It's a lot to read. That's why I would never do that again. I'm not going to volunteer.
That was quite a motion. All right, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous.
Went to the military, not to volunteer.
They need to sign it. So.
That was,
they
that's a
need to put those
record-breaking
out.
motion.
This one and that. one, so we can sign it.
All right, well, I think the next item is the AP manifest of 7/1/2022. We'll take a motion. Like,
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the AP manifest of July 1st, 2022.
Second.
give a second for Dan. Any discussion on this?
Yes, sir.
Yep, Lynn.
I didn't get a chance to send you anything because this came so late, Tracy, but I do have a question on the manifest, $600,000 or 6,000, I think it was, for the software for the police department, not police department, but for the fire department. I can't find it because I won't pull it up now.
I'm looking because I did not print out, I didn't get a copy of the manifest. There we go. Let me look that up for you, Laney.
I keep getting that something is wrong with the document, so I can't pull it up. Download,
What do
maybe
you,
you
can you
can
give
download.
more detail? I've got it in front of me.
Yeah, it was for software for the trucks, for tablets, I believe it was. Oh, I got it now. Can't remember where it was.
It was for fire.
For the fire department. And sorry, I'm looking. Sorry, I didn't get it to you earlier. This seemed a significant amount for tablets.
The payment manifest is by vendors, so
Yeah, but it's under the, I looked it up, it's under the account for the fire department.
thank you, Gail.
Are you
National
looking
Fire
at,
Protection Association.
or are you, there's Alpine Software Core? Is that what you're looking
Yes,
at?
yes, that's the
Thank
one.
you.
So that's 4,630.
Wait, is that one or is it? Sorry,
Yeah, thank you, Gail.
you know what I'm talking about, Gail?
Yeah, I do.
It strictly said on it, tablets. Tablet command, there it is, tablet command on page 5, the very bottom of page 5,
Correct.
So, yeah.
for $6,000.
So it's a service that we receive from them for a fiscal year.
So it's not purchase of new
No,
equipment.
it's not.
it's
Very
just-
similar to our finance software that we have. We pay a fee, an annual membership fee or annual subscription fee in order to have the product work.
So that has to be updated every year, or is that just like a newer
It's-
version, or is that?
It's our incident management software, and we do have to have an annual subscription.
Wow, okay. It
So
seems
this
like
is the tablet that they pull out to get everybody's information when they call the ambulance, and we do have an annual
Seems like
subscription.
a lot of money for that, so.
Well, you'll be seeing a lot of the annual subscriptions because they're all coming up now. We've staggered them, so we're not having them all come in July, but there are certain ones that we do need to pay immediately as soon as the fiscal year starts.
We have quite a few of these then for subscription that we have to pay for.
Absolutely, we have a lot of software.
Yeah.
Okay.
Across the entire town, whether it's for water and sewer, whether it's for my department, our laser fiche storage, I mean, we have lots of services that.
Fine, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, any other questions on?
I missed who the second was.
Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Then we've got an update on select board training opportunities with,
Sure, same. Yeah.
thanks, Joe,
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
with 2 associated.
Thanks,
motions.
finance staff.
Thank you.
Thanks for bearing with me,
Thanks for
Gail.
our treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you all.
The money's leaving the building. Yep.
All right, so we're gonna get an update on select board training opportunities with 2 motions to essentially enter into a contract, to have someone meet with the select board for communications training, and then 1 for the town manager evaluation process. And Kim, as remember, we approved her to look into this and do some work for us. And she did a great job. So Kim, I'll just turn it over to you if you want to just give a summary of sort of what we're voting on and the process you went through.
Sure. So I don't know if we covered this, but initially, I have felt like in order to move this work forward, I volunteered to help, and then we realized it wasn't appropriate for me to just do that without the board support. You all approved, not unanimously, but it was approved to have me just do some outreach. And primarily the recommendations I got were 4 different facilitators and consultants. Were from the LCT and from this organization called Invest EAP, which the town of Hartford is a member, and it is an incredible resource that I didn't really even know about before this process. And some were also referrals from other professionals. For example, a couple of consultants that we had worked with the town before, who gave referrals as well. One of the ones that I'm recommending tonight was referred both by VLCT, but also by Joe Major, who's worked with them directly before and spoke highly. So basically it wasn't just Googling consultants, they all came from some source of referral, which I have a record of and can share if anyone wants more detail. And then we basically the primary, like this initial stage was to get sort of just some general board development communication training and to help us process the town manager evaluations, which is long overdue from the contractual obligation that are part of Tracy's contract for us to do. So those I kind of put as a priority, and then do have, we'll come back to you hopefully before too long, like within a few weeks, to with some proposals from some consultants to do work around diversity and equity training as well. And those might be slightly more comprehensive packages, but we'll see what they send back to us. And my basis for who is qualified, I think in the memo I said I reached out to 13 organizations or individuals, and of those, the only bar for qualification was, is this work that they do, and are they available and willing to do it for the town of Hartford? If those 2 questions were answered, I considered them a qualified candidate. I mean, I had conversations with a number of people, and I had some opinions about who might be better suited, but basically that was the individuals that or individuals and organizations that I'm bringing to the board are all of the ones that basically could do this work. And so from that, the individual recommendations that I'm making are kind of based on my individual perception of who I think could do the work well and do it within a reasonable price range. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Lynn?
Yeah, last time the town got somebody to come in and do training, they were from out west, and we had a lot of issues with travel and things that came up. Are we talking about local people that will not have to? I mean, hopefully we're talking about people that are not outside of a driving distance.
Yep.
So okay.
These are all of these that I brought forth are either New Hampshire or Vermont organizations or individuals. I will say the Abundant Sun, which is the one I'm recommending for communications training, is a Vermont company. The 2 principals aren't like that. It will probably need to be a hybrid meeting with us all in the room together, and possibly one of the partners in the room with us and one by Zoom, because they're currently not in the country. And that was another piece, is that there's that July 19th date that I sort of threw out tentatively. That is availability for 2 of the communications trainers. So I'm hoping that we can, like, so rather than wait till they're back in the country, I think it would be worth kind of, if we get a sense that we can be available that date, then I would recommend that. And then the town manager evaluation, the individual I'm recommending is based in New Hampshire,
Which one is that?
the Bev Widger.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, sure. go ahead.
are you saying that the company, they're out of the country temporarily, they're not based out of the country? Right?
Their company is based in, I think it's Burlington, Vermont. I have their website up. They're definitely a Vermont-based company, and they are, but I think because of the current conditions, they're not always in Vermont. So, I mean,
And have they dealt with municipalities then?
yes, yeah, in fact, many Vermont municipalities, that Abundant Sun, which is the one I've recommended, has dealt with. I didn't write down which I should have done, but they listed off, like, I think they've worked with Montpelier, they've worked with, she named off probably 4 or 5 Vermont municipalities that they have worked with. And this was one of the ones that the Invest EAP, like, hands down, most recommended as well.
Fine with
Rebecca?
Kim, thank you for putting all this extra work in. Does not seem like a light lift. I just reading these, I couldn't really tell the difference, so I am actually going to defer to your recommendation. But I do have a really strong preference that, especially with Abundant Sun, that we work with people who are present physically. So I personally would rather work with the one mediator who can be here than one and Zoom, because I feel like body language and I feel like the delay and the lagging and the glitching can just be so distracting personally. That's my own preference. But beyond that, I mean, I'm supportive. If your recommendation is Abundant Sun and Bev Widger, then I am happy to support both of those.
I got to concur with Rocket on that. In-house is better.
I mean, it won't, I wouldn't, I think that also it's quite possible that we could have an ongoing relationship with this organization.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't say a sense of urgency, but to some extent, I do feel a sense of urgency that we've been wanting and needing to do this work for a long time, that I don't want to suggest that we wait until, I think, my interaction with that particular member of the organization was by Zoom, and it was perfectly fine. And I think we've gotten more, it isn't the most ideal, but I still strongly recommend that if we needed to do a hybrid version to begin with, that we could go in, not to jump around, but the Bev Widger, the HR experience, she will also, in her proposal, which I think I sent everyone the proposals that we got, she's also willing to help us establish like a cycle of how the town manager evaluation can work that, future boards don't have to use, but it would be a resource that I think would be really valuable if they want to use it going forward.
And one question, I'm not positive on this, but did this have to go before RFP process?
No, I think because the amount was lower than
Under $20,000.
20,000.
Okay, so we can just,
And it looks like we have almost 9,000 remaining budget
In
for
the
this kind of
22
stuff.
and then 9,000 in the 23. And I think, some of that could also be, those funds aren't just allocated for this kind of trainings, but I think that also includes like, if members do like VLCT workshops and want to be reimbursed for it, those funds. So it's not like we can use, I do hope that we'll allocate some more. And then I don't know if you saw the link, but there is a very specific Vermont Community Foundation that's a collaboration with VLCT, a grant to fund specific diversity equity initiatives by municipalities. And we're working on that. Basically, the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion is helping sort of build the content. I mean, we need the proposals from the consultants before we can have a dollar amount. So it's in the works. And I think the only reason we wouldn't be successful in that pursuit is if the money gets used up and spent before we can get to it. And it became available in April of 2022. So that's a real possibility that we might be able to get up to 10,000 more for specifically doing like a series of programming around diversity and equity, which I'd love us to do.
Right?
Kim, thank you. So just to clarify, The Abundant Sun would be a training for us as select board in terms of professional communication and just operating to our maximum as select board members. Is that
Yep.
correct? And that date would be July 19th.
Yes, that's what I.
Bev.Adjourn would be to help us navigate the town manager evaluations. Would that also be July 19th?
No, we'd have to pick, basically, I know, they have availability as of mid-July on, so we'd have to find another date for that. We
I see.
haven't, just in conversations with the folks that I've talked to,
Mhm.
we were talking about the fact that sometimes the alternate Tuesdays to our select board meetings could be
Right.
like a likely date.
Right.
And so two of the consultants that I had spoken with said, that's currently available for me now, so.
Would it be possible to investigate? I personally think that it's probably more pressing for us as select board to work through the town manager reviews, given that those have been done in months past. Although I'm definitely excited, I know I could benefit personally and professionally from this Abundant Sun workshop. Would it be possible to explore if we could meet with Bev.Adjourn first? And then also give time for the second member who's overseas? Are they overseas permanently? They're based in Vermont, but they're there for a period of time. Are they traveling? Are they be back?
They work from all over the world
I see.
and they spend a lot of time in Vermont. It's not like they're not in Vermont.
Right.
I mean, I also could talk offline about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think where they live is really relevant to our.
I just feel so
discussion.
strongly about having someone in person, even if it was just one of the two, I think that would be great. But either way, though, I guess my priorities would be that we work through the town manager evaluations, given that we've asked staff and department heads, I guess, in the former select board to undertake that. And then, but I'm supportive of both and I'm happy to.
I think the only reason I would suggest doing the communications training first is I honestly think it will help us better process the evaluation
I
process.
see.
And I mean, honestly, like, I wish I could condense this all into and say, okay, y'all, we got meeting on Tuesday, meeting on Thursday. I mean, like, it
I
is
see.
all pressing and I'm like fully in agreement with you on that. But that's where I stand.
Yeah, just one thing before I get to you, Mary. I mean, I do think the idea of an alternative Tuesday makes a lot of sense because we certainly are going to want to be able to spend sufficient time,
Right.
on both of these to do it. And doing that during a regularly scheduled meeting is going to be very difficult. So I think we'll have to definitely on an alternative Tuesday, just have a meeting that's basically like executive session
Absolutely.
for some of that stuff. So, Mary.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and again, thank you, Kim, for all the work that you've done. This is a lot. Bev.Adjourn, we're saying not to exceed $1,500, and that, according to the cost, would be about 12 hours worth. Would we see that so that we would meet 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 3 hours, 4 hours a day? I don't know. Do you have any idea about what that would
I
include?
think, are you looking at her proposal right now?
Right.
Let me pull it up. There were, I think a lot of that is going to be this background work that goes with it. So I think if it might possibly, like, I think the intention would be to start with one session with us and see if we could, we might be able to get through with 1.5 or 2 hour session. She does the background work, brings back and I think there would need to be some follow-up to then have another session to say, okay, is this, like, we need to do some whiteboard stuff to discuss what are our goals and objectives for the town manager as a select board, and what, what are the strengths and weaknesses, so that we can then productively relate this whole process back to the town manager. And that might ultimately come in the form of some summary report that maybe the chair and the vice chair present to the town manager. That's how I think it would go. But again, I haven't done this before, so I can't. And the reason being, like, I had asked Bev initially, I said, I need the board's going to want a definitive number. And I said, can I say not to exceed 1,000? And she said, that would probably be fine, but let's, to be safe, say not to exceed 1,500. And, I think that we do have some challenging conversations around this that we need to have, and it might take a couple sessions. And
Right.
I mean, none of us want to be in meetings all the time, but we really have a lot of work to do, so.
And I just had another comment. I was just going to say to both Lanny and to Rocket that having been in front of students for years and years and years, we've all had to adjust with the pandemic. And I think businesses and professions have recognized the relevancy of working online with many people. And now, I mean, my daughter's in Germany. She's working for her Boston-based company, but she can do it from anywhere right now. And in their company, they are never going to go back to being in person. And there are a lot of companies, a lot of professions, and I think that they are learning to the best of their ability how to adapt to, you know, showing body language and having meetings and everything. So I think, you know, sometimes we can't get what we are used to, but I think that if we have some good professional people, we need to do this work so that we can move forward.
Rocket, and then what, Rocket, did you have a comment?
Oh, well, I appreciate that comment. I think I hold my position, but I appreciate your thoughts. And honestly, I will defer because to Kim's suggestion. I hear what you're saying, that communication workshop might be useful. And I know that you've done a ton of work on this. In absence of having a better counter proposal, I think the best thing to do is just to thank you and to support this. So thanks.
Wait,
So you're promoting abundant sun, correctly?
Correct.
So the question I guess I have for you is that they're saying promoting dignity and addressing bias in the workplace. That's what their workshop's going to be on, not so much as the communications. So I'm wondering why you went with them specifically versus a communication that covers a broad range versus dignity and addressing bias in the workplace. It just doesn't seem to me as it's enough of a grounded company.
I asked that very same question, and I'm happy to, I got answers from both the partners for that, because I know that this is a training that they've done with a lot of Vermont municipalities, and so it's kind of it's a package that they have that they offer, and basically, great question. I've heard it many times. How is XYZ, whatever the title of the program is, communications training? Couldn't say it anyway. When a group is trying to improve cultural understanding and make changes that improve just and open relationships, the primary vehicle is communication. Through the skills of civil discourse, listening and hearing each other, effective and open inquiry, and honest, respectful sharing, we increase understanding and build common ground. Understanding ourselves is the starting place. Promoting dignity and addressing bias in the workplace takes us into that journey. It is, of course, not the full journey. It is only 2 hours of a lifelong journey. And the other partner's response was something else here. I can't think of it. The others was similar along those same lines. So if I find it, I'll let you know. But oh wait, no, she was under a different.
It's not that I don't believe that's a good topic. I just really feel that we need, as a board and as a town, much deeper communication rather than just strategy focused.
Lanny, I'm seeing promoting dignity and respect as like a result of healthy communication. So I'm kind of saying, I
appreciate your input.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Don't agree with it, but I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? Anyone want to make a motion? I think we would have 2 motions on this one.
Yeah. Before doing that, I just, again, I want to thank you, Kim, because I know this is a lot of work. And also, both of these folks are exciting to me, especially because of the potential of long-term relationship, both with Bev, if she's willing to do work to help us embed this institutionally as a process for evaluations moving forward is hugely helpful. And then just, while I'm not an expert, having been through a lot of different kind of DEI focused trainings, and that will be coming down the line, and Abundant Sun seems to be really, really skilled at that. And it's highly relational work. Like, it's built so much on trust. And so to be able to have that with two organizations or two groups of people is very exciting. So with that, I move that the select board enter into a contract for communications training with Abundant Sun for a 2-hour session at a cost of $1,175, and that the chair sign any documents required to execute the contract. And move that the select board enter into a contract for a town manager evaluation process with V.Adjourn of HRX experienced, not to exceed $1,500, and that the chair sign any documents required to execute the contract.
Can you break those motions up?
I guess we could break the motions up. Do you want to, you plan on voting for one and against one?
Yeah, please break the motions up.
Okay, friendly amendment accepted. So I will just move that the select board enter into a contract for communications training with Abundant Sun for a 2-hour session at a cost of $1,175, that the chair sign any documents required to execute the contract.
I second that.
A second from Mary, discussion?
I found that email I was looking for.
Okay, Kim?
So one of the principals says 3 words that typify our work's major aims and objectives, and that they are to establish greater trust, transparency through improved communication in the form of civil discourse. If you don't know how to communicate in a civil way, then we're all done for.
That's what I was looking for. I will support this stuff.
Okay,
Sorry.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, looks like it's unanimous. All right, now we can.
Sorry,
take a
That's okay.
Second motion. Mary?
I'll move that the select board enter into a contract for a town manager evaluation process with V.Adjourn of HRX experience, not to exceed $1,500, and that the chair sign any documents required to execute the contract.
Dan will second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Okay, great. Now we have executive session. I will take a motion
Mr.
to
Chair.
go into executive session. Go ahead.
Sort of like in resonant with Lenny's earlier comment about, can I make a select board comment? It's really quick. Because it's the 6th, I just wanted to thank town staff for that amazing July 4th event that was out on a Kilowatt Park. It was incredible. There must have been 2,000 or 3,000 people there. And monumental undertaking. So tons of smiling faces, and I just wanted to thank them all for working the holiday.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rocky. Okay, so executive session, I will take a motion. Anyone would like to make one?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move the select board enter into executive session to discuss the appointment or evaluation of a public officer under the provisions of Title I, Section 313(1)(3) of the Vermont statutes.
I'll second.
Got a second from Kim? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, looks like it's unanimous. We are going into executive session.
And
Tracy, would you happen to have hard copies of your?
I got it.
Oh, you got them?
Yeah.
Folks, we're gonna relock the door since I'm gonna be the only one in the building, and CATV is going to leave, I believe. I believe he was only contracted to.
we're not anticipating any action, just for
Yeah.
anyone that's
No action
watching.
plan.
All right, there we go. We're good to go. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for pitch hitting for an hour.
It's okay.